Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar on lumbar disc degeneration versus degradation. Before you run away screaming that you already know all about this, let me say, if you understand that disc degeneration results in disc height increase and not decrease, then possibly your time could be spent more usefully doing other things. But if not, then I think you will gain from the webinar. This was going to be a shorty, but it got away from me as it should have done. I know it's basic, but there are some things on the subject that when teaching, I find are not well known or are misunderstood. So I think it's not out of order to review the topic. In fact, the inspiration for this particular topic came from Michigan Scott of previous fame, who asked a question. So I'm pleased to be able to answer him. Most of the information from this is either from our basic virtual tome of knowledge, but a lot of the newer material that might be less well known is from Clinical Anatomy of the Lumbar Spine and Sacroiliac Joint by Nikolai Bogduk and his original co-author Lance Toomey. I think there may be a few surprises along the way, and I believe it's worth a listen. I am going to compare degeneration and degradation and give some of the causes of degradation. The music intro to the first slide is Maroon 5's Memories, as I'm sure a lot of you knew, but the question is, from who or whom did they rip off the melody? Also, what's the odd word out on the second slide? Same prize as last time. Most fish do not have an intervertebral disc, but rather paired articulating vertebrae. One of the reasons why discs developed in land animals was to reduce the weight of the animal out of water and so lighten its energy requirements. But other reasons include the need for more flexibility, both physical and evolutionary, with different weight bearing and gait strategies among the animals. The disc increases and controls movement while allowing an increased degree of flexibility, but losing some of the stability of paired vertebrae. A little anatomy and biomechanical review is in order. In the healthy young disc that is under 18 years of age, there is little difference in what composes the nucleus and annulus except in proportions. The nucleus is about 90% water, with most of the remainder being proteoglycans, while the annulus is about 70 to 80% water, with the remainder being mainly collagen. The nucleus gradually blends with the annulus so that the border between the two is indistinct, and they are essentially one unit. The annulus is really a series of concentric circular ligaments with fibers running more or less in opposite directions between each layer. This structure gives a deformable disc whose concentric rings of collagen control the amount of movement available. In this and the next slide, we can see the structure of the undegenerated disc. You can see the layered rings of ligament clearly in these diagrams, but in the lower two, the nucleus is shown a little small. As in the lumbar spine, it makes up about 2/3 of the volume. The upper two pictures are dissections of the undegenerated disc, and in these, the relative size of the nucleus is clearly seen. You can also see in the lower left slide the differences between a young adult, before significant degeneration has occurred, and a middle-aged adult. The water loss in the older disc is apparent, but unlike what I was taught, most of the drying of the disc occurs by young middle age and only minor amounts in old age. One of the functions of the disc is to transmit attenuated compression forces to the vertebra below. This attenuation makes sure that the load does not build up to destructive levels as the weight increases the lower down you go. The disc does this by deforming and so transforms the gravitational load to kinetic energy and then to heat, transmitting some of the force radially out through the disc. The accommodating material for this purpose is the water gel of the nucleus, which is almost 90% water. It's essentially uncompressible, but it is deformable. The point here is that the water is incompressible and deformable, and this allows kinetic energy to disperse the load to the annulus. As the disc takes on increase in pressure from body weight and ground reaction forces, fluid is forced out of the disc and through the end plates and into the adjacent vertebrae. This stiffens the vertebrae by making them less compressible, and it reduces the risk of fracture. However, it has a limited ability to act as a shock absorber because this transfer of fluids takes time, and a sudden excessive compression force is more likely to cause a fracture than the same force applied over an extended period. The other main forces a disc must withstand are shear and torque. Both are handled mainly by the annulus. All physiological movements in the lumbar spine are associated with translation across the disc, as well as the primary rotational forces that flex, extend, side flex and twist one vertebra on another. For any movement, half of the annular laminae are tightened and half are slackened. For example, during extension, the front of the disc is stretched and the back is compressed so that the laminae anterior to the axis of motion are stretched and those posterior are slackened, while the posterior translation caused by the extension will stretch those laminae whose fibers are running upwards anterior to posterior and slacken those orientated in the other direction. Rotation to the right will tighten those laminae running up and to the right and slacken those running down and to the left. It means that those that are maximally stretched play a role in the passive limitation of each movement. My favourite analogy of the invertebral disc is to take a phone book, roll it up tighter than is shown in the picture, so it has a small central empty well. Then bind the outside with a steel strap so that it can't come undone. Cut the book in half and stand one half on a hard flat surface and then put a very heavy weight on it and leave it standing. Eventually the pages of the book will collapse inwards and the book will fail. Now take the other half and this time put a wooden or steel bar into the central column so that its top and bottom are not taking direct weight. Now repeat putting the weight back on the book. This time the pages can't collapse inwards and the book will hold the weight indefinitely. This is similar to how the disc works under various stresses. The nucleus supports the annulus and the annulus constrains the nucleus, so both are essential for supporting and transmitting forces. The left picture is the disc of an 81-year-old. The contours are maintained and the water content will not be much lower than that found in a 40-year-old, as most of the water loss is in the first half of adulthood. The right picture was previously seen and is a disc of a middle-aged male. While they are dissimilar in exposure or dissection, it can be seen that they are similar in their degeneration. Most water loss, as I said, occurs by middle age, with only about 6% occurring later. Degeneration is a young person's game.